As a business owner, it's a constant struggle to keep the customers that we worked so hard to get.
So in this episode, we're going to talk about how to reduce your churn rate and keep those precious clients that you worked so hard to get.
Are you frustrated by a lack of momentum in your business? Tired of putting in long hours doing what everyone says you should and still not making money? Sounds like you're ready for Lifestyle Builders. We'll help you get back on track, taking action, and seeing results. Head over to joinlifestylebuilders.com today to get started. All right, so before we jump into the episode, just a quick definition of what churn rate is, what the word retention rate is, and customer lifetime value.
Yeah, well, so the long and short of it is, a lot of people talk about sales and marketing, and there's so much focus on acquiring a new customer, but there's very little focus on actually supporting them, helping them get their goal afterwards. Like a great example of this is the cable companies.
Mm-hmm.
You always get things in the mail. It's like, hey, join this, join our new program. It's like super cheap. And then once you become a customer, they jack up your prices. They give you very poor customer support. And you're like, it'd be better off for me to leave and come back as a new customer. And I'm not even rewarded for being an existing customer, which is like backwards.
Mm-hmm.
So churn rate is essentially like how many of your customers are leaving you. So if you've got a recurring model like a cable company, how many customers are leaving each month? And usually that's a percentage.
Yep.
Retention rate is the flip side.
How many
of those customers are you keeping? And lifetime value or customer lifetime value is really the value of that customer over their lifetime. So a lot of times people will look at, somebody just making one purchase and then they basically neglect the customer and then that customer never comes back.
Mm-hmm.
So if that one purchase was like $100 and that customer never comes back, that single customer is worth $100. But if you can now get that customer coming back and buying more products or a repeat purchase, they might now be worth $3,000 over the lifetime. And the reason this makes it a big difference is it takes a lot more time and money to acquire a new customer than it does to keep an existing one. So what you want to be looking at as you're looking at designing your business and everything is, how can I keep a customer getting the results and staying on board longer, because that means that you're going to need less customers to ultimately hit your revenue goal and what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah. All right. So one of the biggest problems I've seen is like what you talked about in the beginning is there's a lot of focus on getting new customers into your business, but there's not enough focus on how you're serving the customers that you've already gotten.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate. And, like most of us have gone through really bad customer experiences where once, you give them money, which is really the point where they should then really be serving you well because now you're giving them money.
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately, once you give them money, they almost forget about you and they're on to the next thing. Whereas they spend so much time with you before you give them money, it's almost counterintuitive.
Mm-hmm.
But, it really goes to show the companies that truly value their customers and customer service versus the ones that are just about making the next sale.
Yeah. And I mean, I think part of that is because there is so much focus on marketing in this industry that it's hard work to really know your clientele well and to continue to serve them, to ask questions and get feedback from them, to make improvements on what you have. That's hard work. It's for a lot of people, it's just easier to throw more money at the marketing. So that's what you see a lot of times. It's like, oh, well, no, we screwed that up, but no big deal. We'll just throw more money at marketing.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, so, we did another episode, tomandariana.com/53 that was talking about your customer journey. And I'm amazed at how many business owners I talk to that when I bring this up, they're like, Tom, what does that mean? And really what it is thinking about your customer's experience from the moment they realize they have a problem all the way through like doing the research, deciding if they want to solve it, making a purchase, spending the money, getting the experience, getting the result they were looking for, and then finally having a really good experience with your company and telling other people.
Mm-hmm.
So when you think about all the steps the customer goes through as they do that, what you then want to do is say internally, let's look at our company and design each part of that process to support that customer. And when you, like you said, it does take a little bit of time to do this, but when you do this, what you're doing is essentially meeting your customer at each step and satisfying their need. And like you said, a lot of people will do this on the path to purchase, which is really the first couple of steps. But then it's like they completely forget about it once the customer is given the money.
Yeah, so you'll hear it talked about it depends on where you are when you're looking for research and stuff, but it's typically called onboarding. So once you have a customer purchase from you, there's some sort of onboarding, that steps that they the steps that they walk once they've become a customer. So for some people, this might be a simple email sequence that tells you about the product you purchased or the service you purchased and directs you to how to log in or how to get said product. For others, it's much more like a really big deal, and they make the onboarding make you feel really important as the customer, and that's intentionally done.
Well, I was gonna say, and that's really the key, because if you think about it, and put yourself in yourself. But think about an experience you had to where, maybe you were spending a little bit of money, you were really excited about buying something, like let's say it's a new car, even something smaller, like maybe for me it was a PlayStation 4. But what you want to be doing is, when somebody makes a purchase, they're so excited, you want to match their enthusiasm. So if I just saved up a whole bunch of money and I've been so excited to buy this thing and I bought it, from a company perspective, you want to match my enthusiasm. Mm-hmm. You want to congratulate me on that purchase. And then sometimes what will happen is, after a customer has made a purchase, they fall into what's called buyer's remorse.
Yes.
And this is where you went from getting all excited, let's say the company was really excited, and then suddenly you don't get communication from them. And you have all these fears coming up, like, was that
holy
the right,
crap, should I have spent all that money on that thing?
Was that the right purchase? Was that the right company? Do they even care about me? Like, what do I do next? I'm a little bit lost. And this is a huge part of where companies can lose customers. Mm-hmm. You just did all that work to make the sale, and then you neglected them and didn't support their needs, or say, hey, you know what? Here's what's going to happen next. You're going to be super excited about this because you've been working so long and the benefit you're going to get at the end of this. But I want to let you know that there is going to be this thing that's called buyer's remorse. And what happens there is, because, you're so excited and all these things have come up. So I just want to let you know that that is natural, and we're going to be here to support you along the way, right? So by acknowledging that, and then even doing surprise things. So like you said, a surprise email. Maybe you're sending a gift in the mail. Like, how often do people get physical mail anymore?
Not well, it's usually spam mail, like credit card offers and such.
Physical mail they want.
Fun mail.
Yeah. And so what you want to be thinking about is, as you're going through each step of this journey, each step of onboarding them, how can you use email to delight them and communicate with them? Maybe it's a phone call. Maybe it's a video. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's a gift. So there's all these different mediums that you can use. But what you want to do is support and delight them at each step along the way.
I like that. Support and delight.
Mm-hmm.
It just sounds very, very fun.
Yeah. Well,
happy.
Like, we always talk about serving your customers. And if your business is in service of your customers, you're going to be thinking this way, because guess what? If you make your customers happy, and if you get them the result that they were expecting from your product or service, they're ultimately, one, not only going to not ask you for a refund, but two, they're going to tell other people about it, and they're going to be coming back as customers as well.
Mm-hmm. And one of the other ways that you can onboard people is giving them a simple step-by-step, here's what to do next. Because a lot of people, if you're buying a new product or if you're buying into somebody's service, like you said, after you purchased, you kind of get that lost feeling. And maybe it's not necessarily buyer's remorse, but you still kind of feel like, oh, okay, I bought this thing. Now what? So if you can walk people through a step-by-step process, and this works if it's a product or a service, because even if you're buying a product, like say you send them here's how to open and get started using your new product. Here's 5 unexpected ways that people in our audience have told us that they've used this product. Like different things like that, where you can give people step-by-step or examples that helps them kind of jump in and be able to get started using that, and they feel better about their purchase and like they're accomplishing something. So often you'll see a lot of onboarding is a step-by-step process, and that's because it breaks things down and really simplifies it for you as the buyer. You don't want to get this huge like 50-page manual like, oh, here you go. You see all the packages come with a quick start. Here's the 5 things you need to do to get started using your product. Or when you have a service, here's your next 5 steps now that you've bought this service that we want you to walk through. So really help people break it down and simplify how they can get started. That does a lot for the onboarding process for your new customers.
Yeah, well, I did a video the other day, this service called You Need a Budget. It's all about like managing your personal finances. And I did a video for our members and basically walked through, like they have this weird thing where you get a free trial for 34 days. And at first you may be looking at that like, why 34 days? But if you think about it, a customer needs a full month of setting their budget and managing it before they actually get the full experience. So what did they do? They said, well, what does our customer need in order to get the good first experience? Well, they need at least a month. So hence 34 days. When you go to sign up, you know, they have a video that shows you kind of like what to expect. They then give you the free trial. And then when you join, they give you a step-by-step of how to actually use the software. Because what you want to see is engagement points along the way. Because guess what? If somebody never logs in, they're going to request a refund. If somebody logs in and gets confused, they're going to request a refund. So they just did a really good job, and I mapped all of this out on how they really supported their customer. And then guess what? They had emails throughout the entire thing that said, you know, you're at like day 1. This is how you set your budget. You're at like day 15. These are some of the pain points you might have encountered, and here's how to overcome them. You know, you're coming up at the end of this. You already saved this much money. For $80 a year, you can actually save up to this much more. So they really understood their customer. And I mean, there's examples out there. Amazon. Amazon's a really good example of, you know, you get onboarded, you really get walked through the steps. And then once you purchase, they're like, hey, here's other things that you might like. You know, so really thinking about the customer and having that great onboarding experience starts it off, you know, on a good foot.
Yeah. And I think too, there's a lot that can be done with gamification and reward systems where if you get on and you do the steps they said, you get extra bonuses because you're taking the action and you're doing those things to help you become a better customer and obviously get the transformation that you're looking for. But it also helps them as the business owners or as the product, whatever they're delivering to you, because they get better data and they can constantly improve their product or service because they're having people walk through those steps. They're going to see where people are what's the word I'm looking for? Are getting stuck. They're going to see where people are having issues and they can make improvements from those. But then you also get points and you get to use those points for something.
Yeah, points or a t-shirt
or swag. Yeah. A lot of people like to get rewards as in swag when they do certain things.
Well, and a cool thing is you can combine those two. So you can train your customer on how to use the product. And while you're training them, you also reward them. Yep. So now you're making sure that they stay engaged. And it's like you said, gamification. It's fun for them and they get a reward at the end of it.
Yeah. And there was one more, we wanted to talk about automation too, because that's one easy way to kind of add some of that stuff in.
Well, that's the thing. A lot of people, when we talk about this, they're like, well, how can I possibly do this for every customer? The key thing is you're going to map out that process and then you're going to look at how you can use automation for that. So for example, the You Need a Budget example where they sent 30 emails, that wasn't somebody sitting there and every new customer every day sending out emails. They used an automated tool that would then say, this email goes out on day 1, this goes out on day 2, etc. So when you design this experience, you can then look and leverage automation in order to do this. And then if you have a team members, teams can help too. But we did an episode, tomandariana.com/109, where we talked about why you should automate before you delegate. And so this is a great way to give a high-touch experience without having to spend a lot of time or money.
Well, and then your team is really there to serve the people that are asking questions or emailing you outside of the onboarding process. So they're not trying to split time doing all of those things.
Yeah. So once you've got customers onboarded, the next piece is to make sure that you're actually delivering what you told them you would.
What? That's preposterous.
I know, it's crazy, right? But I mean, unfortunately, this is what happens oftentimes is that there's, really good marketing and sales. And then we almost forget about customers on the back end and we're not supporting them along the way. If we don't help them with onboarding, they're not going to be set up for success. But even after onboarding, what we want to do is even gamify the entire system. Make sure that they know clearly what their next step is. They have some motivation for that. They get quick wins, right, at each step along the way, ultimately working them towards their desired result. And we want to make sure that we're supporting them. And, if we see them getting stuck, checking in and providing really good customer support along the way so that we get as many customers as we can to that finish line and that ultimate result they're looking for.
Well, and it's very easy to overpromise things in your marketing because marketing is fun and sexy and you're watching other people and what other people are doing and saying, but you want to make sure that you're not promising things in your marketing that your course or your product or your service isn't delivering on the back end, because this is a really common problem with the kind of low barrier to entry in online business, and everybody's offering things, and it seems like every course out there is supposed to fulfill your dreams and do all the things. But what you want to make sure of is that you're not overpromising and then having people come in and be dissatisfied with your service or product, because one, they're going to leave. You're going to get a lot more refund requests because people are unhappy with the offer and they're seeing like, hey, you promised me this and that's not what I'm getting. And people talk to each other. I mean, you have to be really careful because the internet these days is, everyone posts stuff everywhere. I mean, social media and tagging, and all it takes is for one person to be really unhappy with something and it could potentially ruin your reputation. Now, granted, on the flip side, there are people that just get angry all the time and post about it. So, it's going to be kind of hard in both areas, but just make sure, like, hey, I'm doing whatever I can to serve my customers, and people are going to see that, and that gets shared too. The good stuff does get shared as well.
Yeah. Well, and this is part of why, like, a lot of times when I'm working with like newer entrepreneurs, they want to scale up so quick. And I always tell them, I'm like, look, before you get big, take that time to really spend with your initial set of customers, because one, they were your first set of customers. They believed in you. So you want to reward them. Two, if you're watching like every step they take and you see what questions they ask, you see where they get stuck, if you're in supporting them, they're really going to appreciate that. And when they get their result, they're going to give you a phenomenal review or testimonial, which is going to make your future sales easier. But by watching every step of the way, you can see where they're getting stuck. And every place they get stuck is a gap and an opportunity to improve either your product or the delivery of your product or service. So a lot of people are like, well, Tom, I can't spend all that time. Well, you can't not spend that time.
Yeah.
And the best time to spend it is early on so that you know what they need at each step and you design all your processes that way. And then guess what? You can scale. And then you can put automation in place. And then it's easier to bring a lot more people on, and you're not having to spend as much time with like customer service because you've designed it and really supported them from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing with this is you want to make sure that as you're going through this, it's not just about, the customer getting the end result, but you want to look at the customer getting results along the way. So if your product or service is something they're going to get a quick win on, you don't have to worry about this.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's something that's going to take a longer period of time, like if you're offering a service to people, you want to always kind of set them back into, hey, remember, here's where you were when you started. And then here's the progress and the wins that you made, because it can be very easy. Like for example, when I work with coaching clients, they'll come in like really excited and then they'll get some quick wins. And inevitably along the process, we hit a point where they need to grow or where we realize there's an issue. And what we need to continue doing is continue reminding them of the wins and the progress they've made so far, and then continue reminding them of how worth it it's going to be when they can overcome this challenge and ultimately get the result. So it's not really just about the end result. It's about checking in and making sure they're seeing the wins along the way.
Mm-hmm. And one of the best parts of serving your customers well is when you create raving fans of your product or service. People that love you, that love what you're doing, that love what you're offering, they're going to keep coming back if you can keep serving them, and they're going to tell other people about you, which is the best kind of marketing there is because it's free and it comes from people who love you.
Yeah. So creating those raving fans, a couple of benefits. One, you serve them and they actually got the result that you were talking about, which is what we should be all doing
Yep.
anyways. Two, when they get that really good result, and this is where a lot of people miss out, you want to intentionally ask them for a review or a testimonial, because at that point, like, they just achieve what they were looking for. And like, for a long time, I always hated asking for testimonials because I always like, it felt weird. I didn't want to make it about me.
It is a little bit awkward when you first start.
But here's the reality. That customer just had a really good experience, and the testimonials aren't for you or like boost your ego. The testimonials are for other people that are considering working with your company to understand, is this a good fit for me? Should I be investing in this? And finally, it makes it easier for you to then sell to the right people and repel the wrong people when you have actual customers validating and talking about their experience with you.
And I'm going to be 100% honest here. It feels really nice to be able to read those when you're having a down day in your business, and you can go back and watch or read customer testimonials and remember why you're doing it in the first place.
Yeah, well, especially because, in any business, you're going to have, mistakes. You're going to have customers that aren't happy. And it's so easy for us to focus on the one customer that's not happy versus the 100 others that are. So to your point, having those and being able to go back and say, okay, yeah, we did get a negative review, or this person asked for their money back, but look at all these people that didn't. Look at all these people that we helped. And the other thing with that too is, once you have your customer gets a really good experience, that's now an opportunity. Like, whenever we solve one problem, we actually expose another problem. And so this is where, if you're building out your product suite in your company, what you want to be looking at is, okay, once we help them get this result, what's the next problem they face?
Yeah, you want to keep talking to your raving fans to see how else you can serve them. They already love you. This is the gap that you can fill by talking to them and asking them and sending surveys to really dig into what are the other problems they're experiencing that you could potentially have a solution for.
Yeah. And I mean, so you guys might have heard the term like ascension ladder, but this is essentially what we're talking about. Like, when they get done and they say, okay, well, what's next? Or, well, now I have this issue. If you've got a product and you've set everything up to naturally then support them on their next problem, they're not going to go and look for another company. They don't want to go and do all that research. If they had a really good experience with you, they're going to want to spend their money with you. And for you, you then don't have to spend money to go and acquire a new customer. You're able to just continue serving your existing customers, which, going back to what we talked about at the beginning, that customer lifetime value, it now increases.
I'm just thinking in my head, I probably have a really good customer lifetime value for Wegmans.
Yes, you do.
Because I refuse to shop anywhere else because I'm too lazy.
Yeah, and I mean, like, we're joking about it, but anytime somebody tells you, like, oh, you can save a couple bucks at this store,
I don't go.
No, and why is that?
It doesn't matter to me. I would rather go to one store where I've had great customer service experiences and just great shopping experiences I don't have the time. So for me, the value of my time is more than the value of saving those couple bucks by going to a competitor store. So I will stick with our Wegmans until something really bad happens, which I highly doubt. So Wegmans for life.
Yeah. Well, and then so even looking at that too, so Wegmans has done stuff to even further enhance that. So there's like an app they have.
Yes. The Wegmans app is my lifesaver.
Yeah. You can add your items. It tells you, it organizes your shopping list in order of like how the store is located.
It recognizes when I'm at a different store and asks me if I would like to update my list, correct the aisles.
Yep. And so now, from the customer's perspective, this makes your shopping experience a lot easier. From the business perspective, they collect a whole bunch of data. They know like what items have been added to a list, which helps them then reorder.
They also know, they let me know my previous items that I've purchased there.
Yeah.
So,
and they can recommend other items. So, I mean, like, that's just a great example of how creating a really good customer experience keeps somebody coming back more and more and more.
Thank you, Wegmans.
The final thing that I would say here is that when you're going through this entire thing, whenever I see businesses that get stuck or are struggling, and they don't know what to do, I always recommend go back and talk to your customers. Go back and this could be customers that have left
Mm-hmm.
and existing customers and even potential customers, because your customers are going to tell you all the answers, and so if you talk to customers that have left or had a bad experience, there's nothing more powerful than taking somebody that's upset and not only solving their problem, but giving them a really good experience that they actually turn into a raving fan.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's the best testimonial, where you say, like, I was so upset, like my food came out cold, and not only did they offer to replace it, they actually upgraded my meal to this next thing and let me come back and meet the chef. Like, whatever that is for your business, that is how you can not only not lose customers, but actually then turn those into really powerful testimonials.
Mm-hmm.
But, I think a lot of people, one, when we have them start a business, it's about talking to customers. And a lot of people are like, Tom, do I really got to talk to this many people? It's like, yes, you're going to better understand them. But sometimes we forget as we start growing that we need to continue to stay in touch with customers. Otherwise, you're going to end up like Kodak, where you're like, this digital thing, like, it's going to be a fad. I'm not going to worry about it. But, when you're not staying, like, not keeping a pulse to the market, not keeping a pulse to what your customers need, it's very easy to miss things like that.
No, I just saw an article somebody shared about malls basically going out of business because so many stores are filing for bankruptcy and closing multiple of their physical stores because people just aren't shopping anymore. And, it's going to massively change what our economy looks like. But those stores were not, like you said, they weren't keeping a pulse on what was happening in our society. And now they're paying the price for that. Instead of, other companies have fully embraced the online shopping experience.
If you see the stores that are still around and are doing well, it's because they've adjusted.
Like Amazon, they started online and they're so popular that they're going to be creating an offline physical version of their store. Like, that's how you do it. That's how you listen to your customers and give them more of what they want.
Absolutely. So with that, we threw a whole bunch of stuff out at you. And I'll tell you, this is a challenging thing because most people, when they sit down and they try to think in terms of their customer, they're like, this is tough. And that's why talking to customers helps. But the one thing I want you guys to do coming out of here is actually map out your customer journey. So put yourself in the shoes of the customer and be like, hey, when did I realize I had this problem? What kind of research did I do? Like, where did I go first? Like, did I go to Google and search for a solution? All the way through, like, when they go and buy your product, how can you give them a really good onboarding experience? What can you do along the way to make sure they actually achieve the result they were looking for? And then, what can you do to make sure that they're giving you a review or a testimonial and you're able to then solve their next problem? So map that customer journey out. And you're not going to have it perfect the first time. But once you do this, and especially if you actually talk to customers and watch them, this will help improve all of the things we talked about here.
Mm-hmm. And my action for today's show is actually to go and ask your current customers, what is one thing I could be doing to better serve you right now?
Boom.
That's it. Episode's over.
Well, and if you guys go and you're attempting to do this, if you want some more guidance, let's have you jump on a call with me. So tomandariana.com/apply, and we'll walk through this. We'll talk about like what's going on in your business today. And we'll talk about, how mapping out a customer journey and how even some of the other stuff we have to offer can help you. So if you guys are interested in that, again, tomandariana.com/apply.
Definitely do it, guys. He geeks out over this stuff.
I do. Have giant whiteboards everywhere. We're mapping things out. Like, it's a fun time. So I do on a Friday night.
Totally, but no, it's not what he does on a Friday night. All right, and you have a book for the bookshelf today is what I meant to say. Never lose a customer again.
So the subline is turn any sale into lifetime loyalty in 100 days. And essentially this book walks through the customer journey, really starting a little bit before the sale, but then every step afterwards. And they break down like each part of it. So they break down like the initial onboarding, they break down buyer's remorse, and they have examples of all different companies at each step of the way, so that as you're reading it, it's like, well, how does this look at my company? And then you see examples from service providers, from retail companies, on how they've incorporated this into their business. And it's like, it's a pretty heavy read, but This will completely change your business. We've used it with a whole bunch of clients, and they can't believe how much they've reduced churn, how much better their testimonials are, and just how much happier their customers are.
Mm-hmm. I like it. I especially love the little sad red balloon on the cover.
I know.
Definitely caught my eye.
Well, now that we have our book coming out, I'm looking at like every book cover, like, it's kind of like,
when you get a new card.
Exactly. I'm seeing book covers everywhere. I'm like, oh, that's a really good design, or man, that's too heavy. That'll stand out on the bookshelf.
All right, you guys, it's been another great episode with Tom and Ariana, your hosts and lifestyle builders.
And as always, we want you guys to remember that it's your life, your business, your way. We'll see you next time.
Bye. Hey, we hope you enjoyed this episode. If you know another entrepreneur who may benefit from hearing this show, we would so appreciate you being a good friend and sharing it with them. Are you dreaming of a life of financial freedom and more time to spend with your loved ones? Want to build your business to support that dream? You need Lifestyle Builders, a mentorship program designed to meet you where you are and give you strategic and custom guidance so you can build the business you need for the life you crave. Become a lifestyle builder at joinlifestylebuilders.com. Are you a Lifestyle Builders podcast fan? We'd love to hear from you. Head on over to tomandariana.com/iTunes and leave us a review.